Hi, everyone. Welcome to Journeys with PDA Coffee Chat podcast, where we seek connection, community, and co-regulation while discussing all things PDA. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Journeys with PDA Coffee Chat podcast, where we seek connection, community, and co-regulation. In today's episode, which is episode 3, we're going to be chatting about the difference between pathological demand avoidance and autistic demand avoidance.
So,
are you ready to get started on all of this, Kerissa?
Yes. I love this topic. It's one of my favorite topics because I feel like there's such a big difference in the two, and that it can be really hard to understand what constitutes pathological. And I think that there's also the misunderstanding that anytime an autistic person avoids something, anything, then it comes into PDA. And so I love this subject. The other reason I love it is because I have 2 children. I have a daughter and I have a son. When my daughter's 13, my son is 11, and both have been diagnosed as autistic. And my daughter has been identified as having the PDA profile. And so we live a very much PDA life. We are fully immersed in that. But what makes our family dynamic so interesting is that my son has a lot of avoidance. However, it's not pathological. And so I really get to live like that full difference. And I get to see all the characteristics and how they play out and how they can play out different.
So what is for you in your family, and because I realize everybody's family is different, can you kind of walk us through what your observations about, both are? Like what does it, so what does it look like with your son when it's just the autistic avoidance? And then what does it look like for your daughter where it is definitely in the pathological demand avoidance realm?
So there's some things that are similar, obviously, avoiding. And I would say to some extent, both come from a place of anxiety. And so in that way, they are similar. I can also see some similarities in avoidance techniques. And so that similarity, though, I feel like that part gets small, the similarities. And that's where you kind of start to see that difference. Some of the avoidance techniques can be with both of them. My legs don't work. My feet are too tired. Something like that. I don't know how. I can't find whatever is needed. So if we need to leave, it can be, I can't find my shoes, even though they're next to the door. And so I can see that in both. I will also see, I am a cat. Um, a- Apparently, both of my kids love cats, and both can become a cat. And so if you're meowing, then you don't actually have to answer a question. If you just answer it in meows, or if you're a cat, a cat doesn't like water, so they can't shower. A cat doesn't take out the garbage. So I have seen both of them do that. So some of those techniques can be really similar. Some of the things, I guess, that would make it really different is, um, one, that kind of like root cause, or that motivation. And so with my son who is autistic, um, his like root cause of the avoidance is often more so like sensory. Um,
Mm.
and so he may not put on his shoes, or maybe he can't find his shoes, or his shoelaces are knotted too tightly. So you're seeing that avoidance in maybe leaving the house because um, of a sensory, and it's the grocery store is too loud, it's too busy, it's too bright.
Mm.
um,
Mm.
it might be more of a sensory, like his shoes are too stiff, as a sensory perspective.
Mhm.
And that could be why he's not able to put on his shoes or find his shoes. Um, Often with him, it is more of like a general overwhelm, or what I would call low on spoons, because we love spoon theory and
Mhm.
use that a lot. And so his avoidance may be coming from a place of low spoons. Um,
Mm.
so that's going to be different than my daughter, who is her route of avoiding is because that inferno of anxiety burning in her in every single aspect. And so with her, she can't put on her shoes because she maybe doesn't have the autonomy or the control that she needs in the schedule, or
Mhm.
she doesn't have autonomy in where we're going. um and and so hers is always a lack of autonomy. And then the other thing is, my son is not always and continually avoidant. um he can't, if it's something he's interested in, if it's something he likes, if he's maybe been
Mm.
well prepped on what are the steps. So executive functioning, and the steps that it takes, for him, if he doesn't have all the steps, if he doesn't understand them, like he doesn't actually know what they are, then he will avoid the task. But if he were prepped ahead of time, so maybe he has a chart, maybe he has a list, maybe we just talk about it,
Mhm.
then that's going to take away the avoidance. With my daughter, who is PDA, because it is pathological, even if I were to try to prep her in the steps, like I'm going to give her the whole steps, she is still going to avoid, um, even if she has all the resources she needs, because of that burning anxiety. And because going to the store, it's not just about, well, first you put on clothes, next you put on shoes, and then you get in the car and then you go. For her, she has all these other demands that are weighing her down. Like, it was a demand for her to go to sleep last night,
Mm-hmm.
and so she didn't sleep. It's a demand then to wake up. It is a demand to say good morning. It is a demand to eat. It is a demand to put on clothes. Um, there's social expectations, which are a demand. What are the social expectations of wherever we're going? That is a demand. She is feeling that demand the night before, and so therefore is already in avoiding because of that perceived social demand that could be coming up. And so then she may implement the avoidance tactics of becoming a cat, um, because of the demands all around her. It's too
Mm-hmm.
many steps and too much of a demand to even think about getting out of bed, and then she's frozen in bed. um, and then where you see the biggest split in the two is if my son is actively in avoidance. He is avoiding, because maybe he's just not interested in what we're doing. Like it's not about Minecraft. He just does not care, and
Mm-hmm.
so he's not
Mm-hmm.
interested. He doesn't have the motivation. But with him, I can say, "Well, I'll bring you your shoes and I'll tie them for you,"
Mm-hmm.
and I can talk him through this process of why we need to go, why we're going to do it. And I can also set in some accommodations for him, like, why don't you bring your iPod and listen to your headphones? And so as we go through this process, he is going to he's going to work with me, and he's going to be able to take steps to work through that avoidance, and to be able to accomplish that thing. So the split then, when it is PDA, um, you don't work through the avoidance in that moment. um, I'm not going to like reason or explain to her why she should do it, or why she should hurry, or why should she comply to my schedule.
Mm-hmm.
um, that isn't going to work in her mind. It's just, she's already in fight or flight. She's already in a state of panic, and so I can't just say, well, this is an important, like, birthday parties are important, that you're not going to reason through. And I'm not necessarily going to be like, you just have to get up and do it.
Mm-hmm.
You don't work through it that way. With
Mm-hmm.
PDA, you gotta back up to last week to
Yeah,
to
I always,
work into that.
yes. And I always look at, like, when you were saying it's, adding that demand on top of an already overloaded fight or flight, fawn, freeze system, it's like, I always picture it as being like, adding fuel to a forest fire.
Yes, yes,
Their nervous system is already on fire. It's already, you know, and when you place a demand on top of all of that, it's like, it's it's so combustible. At least that's the way it looks like in our house. It's like,
Yes,
yeah,
the forest fire is that's such a good example, because with PDA, you are bringing gasoline to a forest fire when you say,
mm-hmm,
I just need you to get your shoes on. I just need you to get in the car. Now, with autistic avoidance, you can bring a fire extinguisher, and you can put that out. And that to me is where things split. And that's where I see the difference is I'm able to come and bring the fire extinguisher to my son. I can get him calmed. We can take steps, and he might not agree, but like he can take those steps to achieve whatever he
mm-hmm,
was avoiding. Like you
mm-hmm,
can work through that.
mm-hmm. Those are his accommodations for going to be able to work through that demand. Um, I think this is, at least, in my experience, and in my confusion when I was still trying to do the gold standard kind of um, supports for my son when we were just looking at autism. um, I think that's where we can really get in such a sticky situation, because it's like, okay, well, we know, from the experts, and I'm doing the quotation marks experts for people who are just listening, can't see us, um, that a rigid schedule is what autistics need, and this is what autistics need, and this is what autistics need. And it's not so with PDA, because had I brought a fire extinguisher, I mean, and I did bring a fire extinguisher to the forest fire, it made everything worse. I might as well have just, thrown the whole thing into the fire and watched the fire extinguisher explode. But
Yes,
yet,
yes,
you keep wanting to go down the path of, well, this is what the experts say. And I mean, and my goodness, I have a degree in special education. I spent a really long time in my professional career learning about this. I mean, like, hey, okay, my son's autistic. Okay, I can do this. I have books. you know, I got this covered, no problem. Oh my goodness, no, because every book said you need a fire extinguisher. And
yes.
instead of figuring out that it wasn't a fire extinguisher, I just kept going out and trying to buy more and different fire extinguishers.
Yes,
Oh,
exactly. Exactly. You try and use those techniques, like front loading. And
mm-hmm.
for those of you who don't know, front loading is like feeding the information ahead of time. It's like the planning and you know, the organizing
What
and
to
the
expect.
explaining, the
Yeah.
what to
Mm-hmm.
expect. So you do the front loading, and you have the really nice visual chart, and you put together this really nice schedule, um and you are consistent and you stick to it. Now those are the type of things that help an autistic child have less avoidance, and they know what to predict. They know the system, and that can decrease their avoidance. And then when you get into an avoidance situation, it's easier to go, like, his socks are scratchy,
Mm-hmm.
like, what, so he wears his shoes without socks, right? So like you can like troubleshoot or problem solve typically, and like work through it. um but with PDA, if you bring that front loading, and like, front loading is incredibly delicate situation with PDA, because if you don't word it just right, and if you don't time it just right, it's like throwing fireworks into the forest fire. Like, you have just
Mm-hmm.
made it incredibly worse.
It's napalm. I mean, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the other thing that can make um, parenting a PDA so frustrating, because the techniques and the tools that you're given literally
Mm-hmm.
make everything worse. And then you're stuck with this explosive child who is overwhelmed and distraught, and they're sad and they're continually blowing up, and you're like, I don't know why, because I'm doing all of
Mm-hmm.
the things. But it turns out that PDA, like, it has its own special, like, support, and it's,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, I always find it fascinating when, you have such rich examples because of the neurodiversity in your household. Um, I always, when you talk about the differences in your kiddos, I always learn something new. I mean, it doesn't matter how many times we talk about this, or how often the subject is broached. I always learn something new, and it's so incredibly helpful, because my son's, he's an only, so I don't have that perspective of, um, like you do. So I really appreciate it when we get to talk about it. And again, I just learn something new every single time.
Yeah, it's a very interesting life that we live, because I sort of live constantly in a state of how do I support avoidance, but it's two different types of
Mm-hmm.
avoidance. I have to parent in completely opposite like, there's completely opposite techniques, tools, and supports. And so the way that I can support my son, and the way that I support his anxiety, the way I support his sensory overload, his low spoons, his avoidance, all of that, if I apply that to PDA, it doesn't work. And
Mm-hmm.
then the good news is, though, a lot of support techniques and tools that you can use to help a PDA will actually help everyone. And
Mm-hmm.
that's one of the things that's really beautiful about when you completely flip your life upside down and you step into this PDA journey. When you, like, tear up the manual, and you're like, we are going off road, and we're going to do this, like, completely different. Those actually, those those things and that approach is really great for my other child.
Mm-hmm.
And it is, and that stuff can be supportive. And so, if you do have, more than one child, and you're starting into this PDA life, and I call it the low demand lifestyle, because it's absolutely a lifestyle. You are going to
Mm-hmm.
be adapting everything and how you live. But when you go into that, it can support your other children, and
Mm-hmm.
can help them as well. And so I've seen a lot of my low demand lifestyle when I'm supporting my daughter, and it kind of has to bleed into everything. It's also really supportive to my son, and will naturally decrease a lot of his, avoidance. And so that part is really like, I love that, um, about, that's one of the
And
great things.
and it does, it's not even like, it is, it is. And it's not even with our kids either. Like our children are, we recently had a mom report to us that, they have been in the PDA journey for a couple years as well. And she recently had to go and spend some time with her family, her parents, who, are aging and are in a mental decline. And, one of the things that helped her was using a low demand approach with her parents to help smooth over the
Like the
oh, what
transitions
word am I
and
trying to find? The transitions for her parents, because when you have cognitive and mental decline, you get more agitated because there's parts of you that know you were able to do this and now you can't do this, and your body's not letting you do this, you can't. So having that low arousal, low demand approach, helped her with her parents. So it's not just about kids. This is something that can be um, applied in all areas
a-
um,
absolutely,
of your
yes,
life.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Um,
right.
Also engaging in this, supporting of anxiety and being
Hmm.
so mindful of the demands that I place on my daughter brought a new awareness of the demands that I placed on my son, but
Hmm.
even further, the demands that I placed on myself. And
Hmm.
and that is absolutely huge. And I think that's one of the pieces that make this whole PDA life turn to the positive, is when I start to lower the demands that I put on myself. And
Sure.
and then I'm starting to take control of my nervous system and my reactions.
Hmm.
And um, then I can be more calm. I can be more intentional. And that's how I'm going to support my daughter, is I'm
Hmm.
going to stay calm. I'm going to understand how my words and my phrasing impact her, and can either ignite an avoidance or calm and bring it down. Um and so that's huge, and applying it to yourself and the entire family. Um, and so
Hmm.
one of the other like major characteristics that I have to mention when we talk about PDA versus autistic avoidance, and honestly, you don't have to be autistic to have feelings of avoidance. Avoiding is so incredibly natural to every human. There are things every day in your life, no matter who you are, that you do not want to do. And, sometimes it's like
Right.
procrastination, straight up avoidance, like whatever it is, like all humans do that. That is a human characteristic. We all have reasons to not want to do something. And so, like, whether it's sensory or anxiety, or you're just straight up tired, or it's boring, like you're going to avoid. And so
Hmm.
then that's when you get into the, what is that? What's that root cause? And so one of the really great examples, I think, that helps to explain like what is autistic or just like human avoidance versus pathological? And that is when you take something that is fun or pleasant. And so one thing that sticks out so vivid in my mind is when it would be summer and we would go to the swimming pool. Both of my children like to swim. They both like to go to the pool. And so when my daughter was young, we're talking like 4 or 5, um, and I had no idea that she was autistic, and I had no idea about PDA. And it would be like, well, let's go to the pool. And she would say, yes, I love to swim. And I would be like, fantastic. Put on your swimming suit. Like, here it is. And then I'd be like, now I'm gonna go get your brother. And so I'd get in, with him, and then I didn't know he was autistic either. And so then there would be sort of some avoidance. Now with him, it had to do with fine motor skills and executive functioning, and that literal challenge of putting on the swimsuit was hard. And so then, I could help him put on the swimsuit, and then he was happy and he was ready to go. And so then I would get back to my daughter, and instead of wearing the swimsuit, she, was wearing a costume. And I would be like, why are you not like, don't you want to go swimming? And then she might have this huge, long, elaborate story, and she'd want to tell me, and I'd be like, we really need to get your swimsuit on. And so then it's, I don't like that swimsuit. I want a different swimsuit. And so we dig up another.
And this is activity she wants to do. You already know she likes swimming.
Yes.
She enjoys swimming. She can swim.
Yes.
And
this is a preferred activity. And she possibly was the one who initiated it and said, can we go swimming tomorrow? And I was like, yes, okay. So tomorrow shows up, and I'm like, this is like, you planned the day, and we're actually doing what you want. And now all of a sudden you won't do the one thing that has to happen so that we could do the thing that you want, and so maybe we finally get the swimsuit on, and it very possibly took an hour, and there was like a negotiation about snacks. Like she wouldn't put the swimsuit on unless, I agreed to the special snacks. And I'm just like, why are we talking about snacks right now? Like, just put your swimsuit on and get in the car. Like, like, let's just go. And then finally we'd like, all right, whatever snacks. And then she doesn't like the towel, so we have to go through like 80 towels. And then like, all right, let's get in the car, because we were supposed to go an hour ago. And I like, then her shoes are gone, and I was like, but they were on your feet like 2 minutes ago. And so you're seeing avoiding and avoiding and avoiding and avoiding. And as soon as you kind of negotiated and got something solved, then there's another avoidance that comes up. And this is something she wants. And it often would end up getting all the way to the car. We're in the car seat. I have brother buckled in, and she's crying and screaming. And I'm like, what has happened? Like, what has gone awry? What this is, and this is what you wanted. You asked for this. And that is that pathological piece. And many, many, many times that's, and it would end in her crying, and probably me crying. and like going
Right? I
back
was about
into
to
the,
say.
yeah, me crying, like me crying and sweaty, and like going back
Mm-hmm.
into the house, and then she's disappointed and she's sad and always remorseful, and I'm sorry, mommy.
Mm-hmm.
And she doesn't have an explanation of why it happened. I don't have an explanation.
Mm-hmm.
Now looking back, just the demands and the pressure of every single piece of her life made it overwhelming.
Yeah. And I used to think when we would be in a very similar situation in our with my son, I would think the amount of energy you are exerting not to do this. You could have done this 50 times.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that was my, and I tend to be a very A type person. And, I, if I have a plan, I want to follow through. It's just kind of like, this is what we said we were going to do. We need to do this, because we said we were going to do this. People think we're going to do this. We have plans with people that we're going to do this.
Yes.
And
Yes.
then the same situation, the same situation you were in. And I think what understanding how PDA works now, I get it. And there might be people out there going, but if it's something they want to do, why are they avoiding doing that? And honestly, it's complex but simple at the
Yes.
same time, is because, okay, so what if they are able to do this today? What if she is able to go swimming today and she can't do it tomorrow? But the expectation will be, history has shown that she was able to do it, so therefore she should be able to do it tomorrow. And that's simply not the case, because as we, it's autism, PDA is a very dynamic and complex issue. And just because you can do something today and you have that data that people love to, we need data, we've got data that shows, doesn't mean they're going to be able to do it tomorrow.
Exactly.
And also, there's the expectation that if she has fun, that it's an enjoyable thing, that the next time it should be enjoyable and fun. But what if it isn't? What if
Yes.
there's something
Yes.
else in that, the anxiety is there and she doesn't have fun? So I'm just going to sabotage
Yes.
this
Yes.
because I know I can control the sabotage. I know I can control just staying at home. I
Yes.
can't control whether or not I'll be expected to do it again, or how I will feel when I'm doing it. And then will I be, will my body accept being able to be happy and having fun the next time I try this? So it's
Yes.
it's simple, but yes, so incredibly complex, so incredibly complex.
Yes.
And sometimes the want to do something is so strong,
Oh,
um, that the PDA has to have its say. And we always say, like, the automatic go-to response or answer to something will be no. It
yes.
PDA has to say no first. And then if the demand is less than what they are wanting to do, then sometimes they're able to overcome that no and be able to do what they want to do. The example we have, in our house, is my son loves space, and my husband built a huge, SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket to go. Say,
That is my dog.
that's your dog? That your little dog had a big dog bark.
Ridiculous.
Um, that's okay. Well, yeah, like we've never heard my dogs bark while we're doing this. So where was it? Oh, the rocket. And one day, my husband's like, "Hey, it's a beautiful day. Let's go." We live next to two huge schools with huge fields, open fields. Let's go launch the rocket. Now, this is something he built with his dad. This is something he loves. This is, his special interest. And immediately it was no. And my husband was like, and I'm just like, just give it a minute. Just let the idea be there for a little bit.
Yes. Yep.
And yeah, just let the idea kind of settle. And then eventually he was like, yeah, I want to go and do this.
But I
So,
need,
but
he,
I, the PDA.
yes.
So I was recently speaking to a young PDA teen, and she had the most beautiful explanation, an example. In her words were, no is in the front of my head, or no is in, I want to get this right. No is in the front of my brain, but yes is in the pit of my stomach.
Ah,
And I get goosebumps every time I think about that. It's like how much energy does that take? How much to know, to have that insight that, okay, no is going to be immediate, but in my gut, I know that there's a yes there.
absolutely.
And, I think about that all the time. The want is there. The want is there.
Yes. Absolutely.
They have to
And
feel they have to feel
yes,
they have to feel safe enough. They have and supported enough to get past that no, to get to the gut of the yes, to be able to achieve that yes, to be able to go for that, or at least, attempt the yes, and have it be okay if the yes doesn't come to fruition.
yeah,
And
exactly.
there's a
Exactly.
lot, if you think about all the little steps and all the little things that it takes to get to that yes.
And that
So,
is, that's so incredibly difficult for them because there's all the anxiety and the worry. And um now that my daughter is older, and we've been on this path for a while, she can now verbalize, I am frustrated because I want this. I want it, and I can't. I can't get to it. And sometimes I can come alongside her and try to overcome that no to get to the yes. But a
mhm,
lot of the time she can't get past that no, and she's frustrated, and it's heartbreaking for her, and she's disappointed, and for me, and so sometimes when you don't get past that no, all I can do is come and be sad with her,
mhm,
and
mhm.
and give her that
And
compassion
empathize.
and empathize, and
Mhm,
and understand how bad she wanted this thing, and it's that no in her brain completely stopping and shutting her down. And
mhm,
that's part of it. That's part of this PDA life as well, is I have to understand and accept that sometimes there's absolutely nothing to get past that no,
mm,
and to share in her frustration, and it not be me frustrated with her because she didn't overcome, but we can be together in that
mhm,
frustration. and
mhm,
and then that's also, though, in that compassion and in that gentleness of, I will sit with you and cry with you.
mm.
That's where trust
Yeah.
grows, and then that's where you get to build that safety, so that the next time she feels more safe, and overcoming the no can be more obtainable. And maybe next time you can overcome it, and you can find solutions and accommodations that can help get. But we still see a lot of, I want to, but I can't. I cannot do it. And it's in their brain. It's the way their
Yes.
brain works and processes and is wired. And um and so, coming back to that main topic, autistic avoidance, that avoidance isn't necessarily hardwired into their brain. And so overcoming a no is more obtainable. Like they have the steps, or they could
With
be,
the proper supports,
yes, they, with the
with the
support,
proper support.
and
Mm-hmm.
that they can, yeah, you can
Mm-hmm.
help them work through that. um and and so those are some of those differences. And I think it really helps to give a picture of what it means to be pathological in your demand avoidance, versus,
Mm-hmm.
I am struggling, and I'm just naturally um, avoiding.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. And it's such an important topic. It's such an important topic. And if, for those of you who are listening or watching us, if you're kind of wondering, like, where maybe you or your child, is falling, is this just avoidance? Is this pathological avoidance? There is an instrument called the EDAQ, or the Extreme Demand Assessment Questionnaire. No, Extreme Demand Avoidance Questionnaire. Um, and it's just a rating form that you can find it on the PDA Society website. You can find it on our website under resources. Um, it's geared for ages 5 to 17, but it's a rating scale, and it's very, they ask questions, demand avoidant questions. You rate them, and there's like a little key at the bottom that kind of lets you know if your child scores, within this, and they're this age. It's possible. It's by no means a diagnostic tool. However, it's one of the very, very few tools that are out there. So if you have any questions, that it might be a very good, hey, kind of get it settled in your mind that, oh, well, mm, maybe we're not looking at PDA, maybe we're looking at something else, or hey, it's in black and white now. And it could be a very good conversation starter for, um, to take to your child's practitioner, or whomever might, your child's school, whatever professional who may need, um, where you might just need some backup, that this is a thing. Here is this tool. Look at how my child is falling, this, their score is, and it could just be a very good stepping stone, um, or a conversation starter with to start discussing PDA with the other people in your child's life.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. That's a great tool to help you have some insight on your situation.
Mm-hmm.
And then Heather and I are both PDA certified trainers, and we do one-on-one support. And so if you are in the midst of navigating, supporting PDA, we would love to come alongside you and support you in your journey. And if you're realizing, actually, the avoidance of my child is not PDA, but we are having avoidance, and how do we support it on that side? We're happy to come alongside you in that way as well, and to help. So we have a lot of great resources on our website, and you can contact us and reach out to us from there. And we are happy to connect with you and help you wherever you're at in your journey.
Yeah. And just as an aside here, I think that I may have mentioned in the beginning introduction of this episode that we were going to discuss the difference between pathological demand avoidance and oppositional defiance disorder, but we had so many good things to say about the difference between, autistic avoidance and pathological demand avoidance that I think we're just going to have to save the PDA versus ODD discussion for another episode
Yep,
because
that's
there's a lot to unpack there too.
there's
There's a
so
lot
much
to unpack.
to unpack there, and yeah, so make sure to subscribe so that you can continue to learn.
Hit the subscribe. I can say this. Hit the subscribe button, that little bell down in the YouTube
Yes.
little area. Yeah,
Yes.
hit
Hit
subscribe.
that subscribe button and make sure to subscribe so that you'll know all the topics that we're going to discuss. There's there's a lot to talk about with PDA, and in future episodes we will go over ODD. What is it? How is it different? And we'll also be discussing there's various other diagnosis that can be mistaken for PDA. There's also ones that can go together with it. That gets very complicated for parents to pick through and to understand. And so, yeah, stay tuned, and we're going to help you walk through that with, our experience walking through it ourselves.
That's right. We will offer you we won't hand you fire extinguishers.
No, we
We will
won't.
actually sit with you and we will figure it out.
Yes. So, thank you for being here with us today.
Yep. Alrighty. Bye.